The most dangerous thing about light pollution isn't what it does to astronomers. It's what it does to ordinary people who have never, not once in their lives, seen the actual sky. 8 out of every 10 Americans cannot see the Milky Way from where they live. Not because it moved, not because it dimmed, because we buried it under a permanent orange glow that hovers over every city, every suburb, every highway interchange from coast to coast. The galaxy that prehistoric humans navigated by, that sailors trusted with their lives, that civilizations built their calendars and their gods around, gone. Replaced by parking lot light, bleeding into the atmosphere at 2 in the morning. But it still exists, all of it. The core of the Milky Way, dense and luminous and impossibly vast, still rises over certain places in the United States, where the darkness is so complete, so real, so absolute, that first-time visitors sometimes stop breathing for a moment when they look up. Not metaphorically. They actually stop and stand there. Today we are visiting 13 of those places. Dark sky preserves, certified sanctuaries, and remote corners of this country where the sky looks the way it has always looked, and the way most of us will never see it from our backyards. We will stand in the Chihuahuan Desert as 30,000 stars punch through the dark above a single salt flat. We will follow a stone trail in the Great Basin, where the silence is so total you can hear the blood in your ears. And at the end, a place so dark, so isolated, so uncommonly black at night, that astronomers have made specific pilgrimages there to confirm they have never seen anything like it anywhere else on the continent. Deep breath, let's go. 13. Cherry Springs State Park, the black ceiling of Pennsylvania. It shouldn't exist here. Pennsylvania is not a state people associate with wilderness darkness. It sits inside one of the most densely populated corridors in North America, wedged between Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, and New York City. And yet, tucked into a remote plateau of the Susquehanna State Forest at 2,300 feet above sea level, Cherry Springs State Park is one of the last truly dark places in the northeastern United States. The park covers only 82 acres. That number sounds small until you understand what surrounds it. Miles of unbroken second-growth forest, almost no roads, and a topographical bowl formed by the ridgelines that physically blocks the light from nearby towns. The parking area at Cherry Springs has a dedicated astronomy field, a flat, mowed clearing where you can set up a telescope, stretch out on a reclining chair, and watch the sky rotate above you like a slow wheel for the entire night. But the strangest thing about Cherry Springs isn't the darkness. We'll come back to that. The International Dark Sky Association awarded Cherry Springs Gold Tier certification in 2015. At its best, on a moonless August night, the limiting visual magnitude, the faintest star the naked eye can detect, reaches 7.8. For context, most suburban skies allow a limiting magnitude of around 4. You are seeing nearly 16 times as many stars as you would from the edge of a city. The Milky Way appears here not as a smear or a suggestion, but as a textured band with visible lanes of dark dust threading through the light. The core, when it rises in summer, looks almost solid. Visitors who arrive prepared to be mildly impressed have reported standing in the middle of the astronomy field and being unable to decide which direction to look first. And now, about that strange thing. Cherry Springs is also a magnet for a specific phenomenon. Observers have noted that, as your eyes fully dark adapt after about 45 minutes in the field, the stars begin to cast faint shadows. Your hand held up against the sky casts a shadow on the ground. This isn't legend, it's photometry. The combined light of hundreds of thousands of visible stars, in the absence of any competing source, is physically measurable as illumination. Most people go their entire lives without experiencing this. The forest presses in from all sides. The air smells of pine resin and cold soil. Your hand throws a shadow that starlight made. Pennsylvania did that. And that's only 13th place. It gets darker from here. 12. Big Bend National Park, the loneliest observatory in Texas. In the far southwest corner of Texas, where the Rio Grande carves a series of dramatic canyons through pale limestone, and the Chisos Mountains rise abruptly from the desert floor, Big Bend National Park holds a sky that most Texans have never seen, and most tourists come nowhere near prepared for. The nearest city of meaningful size is Midland, roughly 230 miles away. No interstate highway touches Big Bend. The The roads leading to it are long, empty, and lit by nothing. The park itself sits at elevations ranging from 1,800 feet along the river to over 7,800 feet in the mountains, and across its entire 1,252 square miles, larger than the state of Rhode Island. There are no permanent residential communities, no commercial zones, and almost no artificial lighting of any kind. The park's Chisos Basin, a natural amphitheater ringed by volcanic peaks, is where most visitors encounter the sky for the first time. A wooden bench beside the Chisos Mountains Lodge faces south. On a clear night, the Milky Way appears directly overhead and arcs down to the horizon in both directions. And in the south, where Mexico begins, there is no light at all for 100 miles. The core of the galaxy, packed with stars too numerous and too close together to resolve individually, sits above the window, a natural notch in the Chisos ridgeline, like something framed specifically for human viewing. Park rangers at Big Bend hold regular astronomy programs at the Panther Junction Visitor Center. A compact Schmidt-Cassegrain telescope, white-painted and mounted on a portable tripod, gets pointed at Saturn's rings, at the Andromeda Galaxy, at the Orion Nebula. Children who have never seen the rings of Saturn in a telescope press their eyes to the eyepiece and go silent. What Big Bend offers that few parks can match is size. When a sky this dark covers an area this vast, the experience isn't just visual. You feel contained by the darkness in every direction, simultaneously. There is no bright edge, no horizon glow. The darkness is 360 degrees and completely even, and the sky above it is so crowded with stars that the familiar constellations become genuinely difficult to locate. Orion is in there, you just have to find him among 10,000 neighbors. That's not a sky full of stars, that's stars with a little bit of sky left between them. Further west, the desert gets even quieter, and the sky gets even deeper. 11. Death Valley National Park, the darkest national park in the continental United States. Death Valley's reputation rests on heat, the highest reliably recorded air temperature on Earth, 130 degrees Fahrenheit, was measured here on August 16, 2020, at Furnace Creek. The valley floor sits 282 feet below sea level, the lowest point in North America. In summer, the surrounding Black Mountains radiate stored heat all night long, and the ground temperature can exceed 200 degrees Fahrenheit. Everything about this place is about hostility and extreme, which makes it strange that Death Valley is also, officially, the darkest certified gold-tier dark sky park in the continental United States. But the most counterintuitive thing about Death Valley's sky isn't the darkness rating. We'll return to it. The valley's dryness is what makes the sky remarkable. At an average annual rainfall of under 2 inches, the air column above Death Valley contains almost no water vapor. Water vapor scatters light. Without it, the atmosphere becomes a nearly transparent window onto space. Stars don't twinkle as much. Their light arrives in sharper, harder points. And the total darkness of the surrounding basin, no cities, no roads, minimal ranger facilities with shielded lights, means there is essentially nothing competing with the sky for your attention at 3 a.m. on a November night at Mesquite Flat sand dunes. The sand dunes at night in Death Valley are an experience that resists description but demands a photograph. The dunes glow faintly silver under Milky Way light. Wind has sculpted their ridgelines into clean geometric curves. The silence is the silence of a place where sound simply has nowhere to go. No trees to bounce off, no buildings, no water. Just sand and rock and sky pressing down on all of it equally. And now, about that darkness rating. The Bortle scale measures sky darkness from 1 to 9, with 1 being the absolute darkest sky a human location can achieve. Death Valley's Mesquite Flat site consistently measures at Bortle Class 1 to 2. At that level, the zodiacal light, a faint cone of sunlight scattered by interplanetary dust, is visible rising from the horizon. The Gegenschein, a soft oval glow in the sky directly opposite the sun, can be seen. These are phenomena that most professional astronomers have seen only a handful of times. You can see them from a parking pullout in Death Valley with your naked eye, if you know where to look and if you wait long enough for the dark. The most extreme surface on the continent and the most transparent sky above it, of course, they belong together. Now we cross into the high desert of the Southwest. And we enter a place where the sky has been worshipped for a very long time. 10. Chaco Culture National Historical Park, the observatory that predates telescopes by 1,000 years. The road to Chaco Canyon in northwestern New Mexico is unpaved for the final 21 miles. It is corrugated, washboarded, and deeply uncomfortable at any speed above 15 miles per hour. There is no gas station at Chaco. There is no restaurant. Cell phone service ends well before you arrive. The National Park Service provides a campground with pit toilets and water. That is all. And the people who built this place intended exactly that level of isolation, roughly 900 years before the automobile was invented. The ancestral Puebloans who constructed Chaco's great houses, Pueblo Bonito, Chetro Kettle, Hungo Pavi, between 850 and 1150 AD, aligned their architecture with astronomical precision. The corner windows of Pueblo Bonito's north wall frame the rising sun at the winter solstice. A spiral petroglyph on Fajada Butte, carved into sandstone at a height that requires a rope descent to reach, is bisected by daggers of sunlight only at the summer and winter solstices and at the spring and fall equinoxes. The entire canyon is, in effect, a naked-eye observatory, engineered into stone and oriented by a civilization that spent centuries mapping what moved overhead. Today, that same sky is still here. The canyon is designated an International Dark Sky Park. The sandstone walls of Pueblo Bonito glow amber under a headlamp during an evening tour, and above them, the same stars that the builders tracked, named, and incorporated into their calendar systems and their architecture. The Milky Way rises over Casa Rinconada, the Great Kiva, in summer, and you can stand at the center of the Kiva's circular floor and watch the band pass directly overhead through the open roof. Imagine standing where 1,000 years of intentional skywatching happened. Not for pleasure, not for science, because the stars told them when to plant, when to gather, when to perform the ceremonies that held their world together. The sky was functional, sacred, inseparable from life. You look up from the same spot they looked up from. The Milky Way doesn't care how long you've been watching. 900 years of silence. The stars haven't changed a thing. Something changes at the next stop. The sky stays dark. But what's on the ground beneath it is unlike anything else on this list. 9. White Sands National Park, the galaxy above the impossible ground. White Sands, in southern New Mexico, is 275 square miles of gypsum dunes, the largest gypsum dune field on Earth. The dunes are white, not cream, not off-white. White, the way a clean piece of printer paper is white. And when the moon rises over them, they glow so brightly that the park holds specific full moon nights each month, where visitors are allowed to walk the dunes under moonlight, alone, with no artificial light at all. But the moon-free nights are the ones that matter for this list. When the moon is absent and the sky above the Tularosa Basin is clear, which it is reliably for more than 200 nights per year, the combination of absolute ground-level whiteness and absolute overhead darkness creates a visual experience that photographs almost never capture correctly. The Milky Way arches over a surface that looks like snow. The dunes cast faint shadows from starlight alone. Your footprints in the gypsum are visible. The core of the galaxy hangs above the white expanse, like a painted ceiling in a cathedral built without walls. The Park Service turns off all lighting in the dune field during designated dark sky events. Interpretive signs on wooden posts along the inner dune boardwalk go dark. The parking area lights are shielded downward. What remains is a landscape so visually strange and a sky so densely populated that every person who has written an account describes the same initial instinct, the urge to check that what they're seeing is real. Is there anything else on Earth that looks like a field of white sand under the Milky Way? Probably not. This is not a comparison that needs to be qualified. The brightest ground in the country, the darkest sky. Pick your contradiction and stand inside it. We're heading north now, into a place where the solitude is so profound it has its own kind of gravity. 8. Great Basin National Park, the park that receives fewer visitors than a small-town museum. Great Basin National Park in eastern Nevada is one of the least visited national parks in the country. In a typical year, fewer than 140,000 people come here. Yellowstone receives that many visitors in a single busy week. Great Basin sits at the end of Nevada Route 488 in the tiny town of Baker, population under 100. And the nearest city with a major airport is Salt Lake City, roughly 230 miles north. This remoteness is precisely why the sky here is among the most extraordinary on the continent. The park rises from the desert floor to the summit of Wheeler Peak at 13,063 feet. A grove of ancient bristlecone pine trees grows near the summit, individual trees that have been living since before the pyramids at Giza were built. The oldest confirmed living bristlecone at Great Basin is over 3,000 years old. It stands about 30 feet tall, massively twisted, its bark the color of old bone, its roots gripping the talus slope. Nothing else grows nearby. The tree has outlived every civilization that has risen and fallen since it germinated. But the strangest thing about Great Basin's sky is what happens when you drive away from the campground and onto the empty state highway at midnight. The park's certification as a gold-tier dark sky park means its immediate area is protected. But on Nevada Route 50, the loneliest road in America, as it was designated by Life magazine in 1986, the darkness extends for hundreds of miles in every direction. There are no lights. Pull over anywhere on Route 50 between Ely and Eureka at 2 a.m., and you are standing in darkness that extends without interruption to the horizon on all sides. The Milky Way reflected in the cracked windshield of your car, the sound of nothing. And now, about that highway. At certain points on Route 50, the atmospheric clarity and the absence of competing light sources combine to produce something that long-haul truck drivers and traveling astronomers have both described. The sensation that the sky is pressing down, that the stars are not far away but close, imminent, almost overhead in a way that feels structural rather than aesthetic. Several observers have independently used the word crushing to describe it. Not unpleasant, but crushing. No official explanation for this psychological effect exists. Researchers in environmental psychology point to the brain's response when the visual hierarchy of ground and sky collapses. When the sky becomes as rich and textured as the ground, the mind struggles to orient itself in three-dimensional space. That is the leading theory. It is unproven. A 3,000-year-old tree watches the same sky it has always watched. Neither of you has any news for the other. We are halfway up the list. From here, the places get darker, more remote, and more specifically, strangely beautiful. 7. Headlands International Dark Sky Park. The shore where the stars meet the water. Michigan is not a state that appears on most lists of dark sky destinations. It is home to Detroit, Grand Rapids, Flint. It is an industrial state, a Great Lakes state, a place of car manufacturing and winter ice storms. And yet on the northern tip of the Lower Peninsula, at the point where Lake Michigan and Lake Huron converge near the Straits of Mackinac, Headlands International Dark Sky Park preserves one of the most unusual stargazing experiences in the entire country. The park is 600 acres of old-growth northern hardwood forest, open dune meadows, and Lake Michigan shoreline. The shoreline faces west across open water, with no cities for a very long distance in that direction. When the sun goes down and the darkness rises over the lake, the horizon is a clean, uninterrupted line of black water meeting black sky. The Milky Way arches from the tree line behind you, over the water in front of you, and its reflection, faint but real, visible on calm nights, appears on the surface of Lake Michigan, a galaxy reflected in the surface of one of the largest bodies of fresh water on Earth. That is a specific image. No other dark sky preserve on this list offers it. The park's Cosmos Center is a converted old farmhouse with warm-tone exterior lighting on motion sensors. Inside, racks of Loner red light flashlights, the kind that preserve night vision, are available to visitors free of charge. A star wheel printed on laminated cardboard hangs near the door. The concrete path leading to the shore has small reflective markers at knee height, so you can walk it without a torch. In winter, on the clearest nights, the northern lights occasionally appear above the Michigan horizon, green curtains moving above the ice on the shore. In summer, fireflies pulse in the meadow between the tree line and the beach, and for about 20 minutes each midsummer night, the fireflies and the stars compete for the same patch of sky, in a way that makes it temporarily impossible to tell which direction you're looking. The stars in the water, the fireflies in the air, the Milky Way somewhere between them, not quite sure which side it belongs on. The next location has been dark for reasons that have nothing to do with preservation, and everything to do with time leaving things behind. 6. Natural Bridges National Monument, America's first international dark sky park. When the International Dark Sky Association designated its first official international dark sky park in 2007, the honor went to Natural Bridges National Monument in southeastern Utah. Not to Yellowstone, not to the Grand Canyon, not to any of the famous parks with millions of annual visitors. To a small, remote canyon in the Colorado Plateau that most Americans have never heard of, and most tourists drive past on the way to somewhere more famous. Natural Bridges protects 3 massive natural sandstone bridges, Sipapu, Kachina, and Owachomo, carved by the seasonal floods of White Canyon over millions of years. Sipapu Bridge is the second largest natural bridge in the world. Its span is 268 feet, and its height above the canyon floor is 220 feet. You stand at the rim trail and look down at a ribbon of pale sand threading through red rock walls, and at the far end of the canyon, the bridge frames a section of sky, the way a window frames a view. At night, what that window frames is the Milky Way. The nearest town with a grocery store is Blanding, roughly 50 miles away. The park sits at 6,500 feet elevation, in a landscape where the horizon in every direction is either canyon rim or empty plateau. The light dome over Blanding is visible only if you look directly toward it and know what you're looking for. Everywhere else, darkness. But here's the thing about being first. Natural Bridges didn't become dark because someone protected it. It was always dark. The designation acknowledged a condition that already existed and promised to maintain it. The monument's few visitor facilities use full cutoff, downward-aimed lighting. There is no light wasted upward. The stars receive every photon of darkness the monument can offer them. Standing at the Sipapu Bridge overlook at midnight, with the canyon invisible below and the sandstone rim glowing faintly at the edge of starlight visibility, the sense of scale inverts. The bridge, 268 feet wide, becomes the small thing. The sky above it becomes the structure. The stars are the architecture. The bridge is just a door. America's first protected dark sky, still the first thing you see when you look up. The next place doesn't just preserve dark sky. It was built for the stars. Literally, architecturally, on purpose. 5. McDonald Observatory, the mountain that has always belonged to the dark. Mount Locke in the Davis Mountains of West Texas rises to 6,791 feet above the surrounding desert. The Texas legislature designated a zone of light pollution control around it in 2001, the first such statutory protection for an astronomical site in the United States. Within 60 miles of the summit, outdoor lighting is regulated. The reflectors on highway signs are a specific approved type. Outdoor signage is subject to shielding requirements. The mountain, in legal terms, has a right to darkness that is enshrined in state law. McDonald Observatory sits on that summit. Its domes, white and rounded against the blue Texas sky during the day, running silently open at the top in darkness at night, have been here since 1939. The Hobby Eberly Telescope, one of the largest optical telescopes in the world, occupies a massive cylinder of white steel and angled mirror. Its primary mirror is 30 feet in diameter. It collects light from objects 12 billion light-years away. And every Tuesday, Friday, and Saturday night, the observatory holds its star party, folding chairs set up on the concrete observation deck. A telescopist, usually a graduate student or staff astronomer, points a row of smaller instruments at the night sky and talks visitors through what they're seeing. Jupiter's moons, visible as bright dots flanking the planet's disk. The Hercules cluster, a sphere of several 100,000 stars packed so tightly they appear as a single smear of light to the naked eye. The Ring Nebula, the glowing shell of gas left behind by a star that died 8,000 years ago. What separates McDonald from a standard stargazing site is the quality of the optics combined with the quality of the sky. The Davis Mountains' altitude and aridity produce atmospheric seeing conditions, a measure of how stable and clear the air column is, that rival observing sites in Chile and Hawaii. Professional astronomers working there on actual research are operating at the edge of what is physically possible for ground-based astronomy. And you are standing 20 feet away watching them do it. The smell of the concrete deck is cool and dusty in the night air. The domes make a faint mechanical sound when they rotate. Above it all, the Milky Way is so bright over the Davis Mountains that first-time visitors sometimes mistake the core for approaching clouds. The largest working eye in Texas is open, and it's looking at something 12 billion years old. Be patient, the dark is just beginning. 3 places remain, and now the stakes change. These are not just places where the sky is dark. These are places where the sky defines everything. The reason people go, the reason they stay, and the reason they come back. 4. Cosmic Campground International Dark Sky Sanctuary, the meadow at the end of the road. In the Gila National Forest of southwestern New Mexico, 17 miles from the small town of Glenwood, on a gravel forest road that ends at a flat, high-altitude meadow surrounded by ponderosa pine, the United States Forest Service maintains a campground with no water hookups, no electricity, no camp store, and no lighting of any kind. It is called Cosmic Campground, and it is one of only a handful of international dark sky sanctuaries on Earth, the highest designation the International Dark Sky Association awards, reserved for places of exceptional darkness that are also exceptionally remote and uncommonly well preserved. The campground has 8 campsites. A wooden kiosk near the entrance has laminated pages describing the Milky Way, the planets, and the light years separating nearby stars. Rocks painted with constellation patterns are arranged near a fire ring. A hand-drawn sign reads, "All lighting must be red tone or shielded." Below it, someone has taped a printout of a Bortle scale chart. At this site, the measured Bortle class is a consistent one, the darkest category that exists. The meadow is at 5,800 feet elevation. It is ringed by the Mogollon Mountains to the east. The Milky Way at Cosmic Campground rises from one mountain ridge and sets behind another, arching directly overhead with enough light to read a newspaper's headline type beneath it. A standard test used by observers to confirm a Bortle Class 1 site. The individual stars in the core of the galaxy are not individually visible, but the lanes of dark dust threading through them are. The structure of the galaxy itself, arm versus core versus outer disk, is discernible with the naked eye. 8 campsites for the darkest measured sky in the lower 48 states. You can book one for roughly $20 per night. Most nights outside of summer weekends, you can have the meadow to yourself, and the star field above it, and the absolute silence of a forest where even the fire ring smoke drifts up into the dark and disappears before it reaches the tree line. Imagine driving 400 miles of emptying landscape to reach a gravel turnoff and a wooden sign, and 8 flat patches of ground in a meadow, and then looking up, and understanding, for the first time, that you didn't come too far. You didn't come nearly far enough. 8 campsites, Bortle Class 1. The mathematics of scarcity have never felt this generous. Second place is not a compromise. It is a name that carries the whole weight of what darkness means in this country, and what happens when a community decides, together, to protect it. 3. Enchanted Rock State Natural Area, the dome that holds the sky in place. 65 miles northwest of Austin, Texas, a pink granite dome rises from the hill country landscape, like the back of something immense, just barely clearing the surface. Enchanted Rock is one of the largest batholiths in the United States, a mass of igneous rock formed underground from cooling magma, and then exposed over millions of years as the surrounding softer rock eroded away. The dome's summit sits 425 feet above the surrounding plain. Its total surface area is 640 acres of bare, rounded pink granite, swept by wind in every direction. The Tonkawa people, who lived in this region for centuries before European contact, believed the rock was inhabited by spirits. They reported hearing crackling sounds from the summit at night, a sound caused, geologists now explain, by the granite contracting as it cools in the hours after sunset. The rock expands under the heat of the Texas sun and contracts audibly in the dark. The summit makes noise at night. It always has. Enchanted Rock's dark sky status is partly a product of its geography. The Texas Hill Country has fewer large cities per square mile than most of the eastern United States, and the state park's 5-mile buffer from the nearest town of Fredericksburg, which has adopted dark sky-friendly ordinances, means the light dome to the south is faint and low on the horizon. Standing on the summit of Enchanted Rock at 11 p.m. in late October, the view is a full 360-degree panorama of dark hill country horizon and saturated sky. The Milky Way is not just overhead, but wraps to the horizon on the south side. The granite underfoot is still faintly warm from the day's sun, even hours after dark. The crackling sound is real, low, intermittent, like something adjusting its weight. There are no fences on the summit, no railings, no lights. A lone interpretive sign bolted to the granite near the summit trail is the only human artifact at the top of the dome. You sit on a billion years of cooled magma and listen to the rock talk to the dark. The Milky Way says nothing back. It has never needed to. The rock crackles in the dark. The stars don't answer. But something up there is definitely listening. Two places remain, and one of them will make everything before it feel like a preview. 2. Katahdin Woods and Waters National Monument, the observatory at the edge of the east. Maine's Katahdin Woods and Waters National Monument is one of the newest additions to the National Monument System. Established in 2016, over 87,563 acres of boreal forest, river corridors, and remote ridgeline in the north-central part of the state. The nearest city of any size is Bangor, roughly 75 miles to the south. The monument's northern reaches share a border with the North Maine Woods, an additional 3 million acres of private, managed timberland with almost no permanent population. To the north of that, Canada, and then nothing significant for a very long time. This is the darkest sky accessible to visitors in the entire eastern United States. That is not a promotional claim. It is the conclusion of Bortle sky measurements conducted by the International Dark Sky Association and independent observers. The monument's interior reaches a measured Bortle Class 2 to 3, a number that, east of the Mississippi River, is essentially unprecedented for a place a private citizen can drive to and camp in without a permit requiring months of advanced planning. The Swift Brook Road runs through the monument's interior, unpaved and rough, passable by high-clearance vehicles in summer and early fall. Pull off at the Barnard Mountain trailhead in late August at 1 a.m. and step out of your car. The spruce trees are a black wall on either side of the road. The road itself is a gray thread in the dark. Above it, the Milky Way is a river of light, running the full length of the sky from south to north. And the Perseus double cluster, two open star clusters so close together in the sky, they appear as a single brightening, hangs directly overhead, visible without binoculars. The air at that elevation carries a smell of spruce sap and cold water from the east branch of the Penobscot River, audible in the dark as a low, continuous sound. Katahdin itself, the peak that marks the northern terminus of the Appalachian Trail, a 269-foot block of granite, rising sharply from the surrounding boreal plateau, is visible on clear nights as a dark absence against the star field, a mountain-shaped hole in the sky. Its silhouette is identifiable. Its summit is one of the best stargazing perches on the eastern seaboard, if you are willing to hike up at dusk and stay through the night. Somewhere in the archives of the National Park Service, the administrative records of Katahdin Woods and Waters include your right, as a citizen, to stand in that darkness. No fee, no permit, no reservation. 3 million acres of forest and one of the darkest skies on the East Coast, and the gate is legally open to you. The East Branch runs below the ridge in the dark. The spruce wall absorbs whatever sound the stars might make. The Milky Way is not impressive here. It is overwhelming. There is a difference. The end of the Appalachian Trail and the beginning of the sky. Hikers who summit Katahdin think they've finished something. They've only just looked up. And now, first place, the one that made astronomers drive all night to verify what they thought they couldn't have possibly seen the first time. 1. Wagon Wheel Gap, the valley where darkness is the only weather. There is a valley in the high San Juan Mountains of southern Colorado, between the towns of Creede and South Fork along Colorado Highway 149, where the Rio Grande River runs through a gorge of volcanic rock, and the surrounding peaks rise to over 14,000 feet in every direction, cutting the horizon so sharply and so high that in winter the sun reaches the valley floor for fewer than 6 hours per day. The valley is called Wagon Wheel Gap. Population, approximately 4 permanent residents, 2 of whom run a small fishing camp on the river. Professional astronomers from the University of Colorado and from the Dark Sky Rangers Network first began making specific trips to Wagon Wheel Gap in the early 2000s to investigate claims from local ranchers and fishermen that the sky there was unlike anything in their combined decades of observing. The investigators brought calibrated sky quality meters, devices that measure the darkness of the sky in magnitudes per square arcsecond, the standard unit of sky brightness measurement. What they recorded at Wagon Wheel Gap on multiple independent visits remains, to date, among the highest darkness values measured at any non-polar location in North America, accessible by a paved road. The measurements place the valley's sky at a consistent Bortle Class 1, with sky quality meter readings at the upper edge of that class, numbers that are normally associated with high-altitude mountain observatories or remote desert plateaus accessible only by four-wheel drive. Wagon Wheel Gap is reached by a paved highway. The camp road to the river is gravel, but passable by any passenger vehicle. You can be here from Denver in under 4 hours. Why is it this dark? The mountains. The San Juan peaks surrounding the valley block light from Alamosa to the south, from Gunnison to the north, from every populated valley in all directions. The gorge walls reflect nothing upward. The volcanic rock is dark and non-reflective. The river, running fast and white over boulders at the gorge floor, is the only pale surface for miles. And the altitude. Wagon Wheel Gap sits at roughly 8,200 feet, with the surrounding peaks running another 6,000 feet above that, places the observer deep inside the clean, thin air of the Rocky Mountain upper atmosphere, where even the faint air glow that normally softens the sky at lower elevations is reduced to negligibility. The Milky Way at Wagon Wheel Gap on a moonless October night is not the Milky Way that the word implies to most people. It is not a streak or a band. It is a three-dimensional structure. The core is so bright and detailed that it appears to have depth, that the central bulge of the galaxy genuinely appears closer than the outer arms, which genuinely appear to recede. The structure of the disk, the dust lanes, the star-forming regions glowing with nebular pink are all present. The sky from horizon to horizon is so saturated with stars that the familiar constellations are completely invisible, not because the stars aren't there, but because they are indistinguishable from the 10,000 surrounding them. Ranchers in the valley don't make particular note of the sky. It is simply what the sky looks like. It has always looked that way. Their dogs sleep under it. Their horses stand in it. A hay barn near the river road has a rusted tin roof that catches the galaxy's light on still nights and holds a faint mirror image of the Milky Way in its angled metal surface. No one planned that. No one preserved it. It just happened because darkness happened first, and no one ever managed to replace it with anything else. If you go, and nothing about this list is a stronger recommendation than this single entry, go in late September or October. The summer monsoon is over. The air is dry. The nights are long, and the temperature drops to the 30s by midnight, which keeps most visitors away and keeps the valley yours. Bring a sleeping bag rated to the cold. Bring a red light torch and leave the white light in the car. Lie on the gravel shoulder of the highway with your head away from the road and look straight up for 10 minutes without moving. Don't try to identify anything at first. Just let the sky be what it is. After 10 minutes, the brain adjusts. The individual stars stop being a field and become a structure. The Milky Way stops being bright and becomes dimensional. And the San Juan peaks around you, dark and enormous and pressing in from all sides, become not a barrier, but a frame. The walls of the one place in the lower 48 states where the darkness is complete enough, and the sky is full enough, and the silence is absolute enough that you can be briefly, genuinely, overwhelmingly small. Not frightened. Small. It's different. It's better. The ranchers call it home. The astronomers call it anomalous. You will call it the most honest sky you have ever seen. All three are true at the same time. 13 places. One thing in common. Not just darkness, purpose. Every one of these sites exists because enough people decided that the sky above them was worth protecting with the same seriousness we protect rivers and forests and coastlines. Dark sky preservation is young, as conservation movements go. The first International Dark Sky Park was designated in 2007. In 17 years, the network has grown to include sites on every continent. The movement is accelerating because the loss it's responding to is accelerating too. Every year, artificial light at night increases globally by roughly 2%. That number is small, Compounded over decades, it means that a child born today in most major cities will never, without a significant journey, see the sky that their great-grandparents considered ordinary. But the sky itself is still there. It has not moved. It is still as full as it has ever been, in Colorado, in Maine, in the desert of New Mexico, in a meadow at the end of a gravel road in the Gila National Forest, where 8 campsites are waiting, and the stars have not changed their schedule for anyone. So here's the question. If you had one night, one clear, dark, moonless night, would you drive to Wagon Wheel Gap for the most extreme sky on the continent? Or would you choose White Sands, where the galaxy reflects off a white desert that looks like snow, and you can stand in an image that no other place on Earth can make? If this list reminded you that there's still a sky worth driving toward, leave a star below. Not a like, a star. This topic earned it. Stay safe, and see you soon.